In the heart of a bustling city, a routine traffic stop was about to ignite a firestorm of controversy. A black woman minding her own business was suddenly surrounded by officers, her hands cuffed behind her back. The scene unfolded in front of shocked onlookers, and the incident was captured on body cam footage. What appeared to be a clear-cut case of police overreach quickly spiraled into a complex web of misinformation and public outcry. As the video spread across news outlets and social media platforms, the community was left grappling with questions of justice, racial profiling, and accountability. Was this an isolated incident, or a reflection of deeper systemic issues? The truth, as it often does, lay hidden beneath layers of assumptions and biases. Before we dive deeper, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. We'd love to hear from you. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you never miss any of our upcoming videos. Her name was Angela Thompson, a woman known by her neighbors as kind, responsible, and deeply committed to her work and family. She had spent years building her career, raising her children, and quietly navigating life in a city that often felt both familiar and unforgiving. On the other side of this sudden confrontation were the officers whose actions had stunned everyone watching. At first, their identities remained anonymous, their motivations unclear, leaving a fog of confusion hanging over the incident. Witnesses crowded around, some reaching for their phones to capture the scene, others frozen in disbelief, unsure whether to intervene or simply watch as events unfolded. The media began to pick up the story, headlines flashing across television screens and social feeds, each one framing the moment in different ways. And with each passing hour, the questions grew larger and more urgent. Why was Angela Thompson handcuffed in broad daylight in front of dozens of onlookers? Was this a simple mistake, an error that could be explained away, or was something far more complicated at play? And most importantly, what shocking truth would emerge later, turning the assumptions of everyone involved upside down? These questions were not idle curiosities. They were the threads of a story that would unravel slowly, revealing a reality far more surprising and human than anyone could have anticipated. Angela Thompson had lived in this city for nearly 2 decades, carving out a life that was steady, hardworking, and quietly impactful. She worked as a project coordinator for a small but growing tech firm, a role that demanded precision, patience, and long hours. Yet she managed it with a grace that her colleagues admired. Her mornings began early, often with a cup of coffee in her kitchen as she reviewed her day's agenda, making sure her children were ready for school and that everything at home was in order before she stepped out into the busy streets. In the evenings, she could be found volunteering at the local community center, mentoring teens, organizing neighborhood cleanups, and attending city council meetings when time allowed. Her neighbors knew her as a friendly, approachable figure, always willing to lend a hand or offer guidance, someone who smiled often and carried herself with quiet confidence. On social media, she shared glimpses of her life that made her even more relatable. Photos of her kids' school performances, snapshots from weekend hikes, posts about her co-workers' successes, all of it painting a portrait of a woman deeply embedded in her family, her work, and her community. Yet even in this seemingly peaceful life, there were subtle hints of tension, minor encounters that hinted at the complexities of her surroundings. She had noticed occasional rude stares from certain officers during her drives home, fleeting moments that seemed inconsequential at the time, yet in hindsight, felt like faint warnings. The city itself was a patchwork of neighborhoods, some safe and welcoming, others tense and suspicious, where interactions between residents and local law enforcement often carried unspoken weight. In Angela's corner of the city, it was common to hear stories of misunderstandings, wrongful stops, or confrontations that escalated far too quickly. She had never been one to worry excessively, believing that if she lived honestly and treated others with respect, the world would treat her in kind. But as her life unfolded on that particular day, all of those routines, all of those familiar streets, and all of those small, seemingly insignificant tensions would converge into a moment that would challenge everything she thought she knew about safety, fairness, and how quickly a life built on trust could unravel. It was a Thursday morning when Angela Thompson left her apartment building, just as she had every day for years, completely unaware that this ordinary day would soon become the most scrutinized hours of her life. She walked briskly to her car, coffee in hand, thinking about the meetings she had at work and the errands she needed to run for her children. A minor traffic incident, a car merging too closely, set the stage, though at first it seemed trivial. Within minutes, a squad car pulled alongside her vehicle, lights flashing, siren silent but commanding attention. Angela, confused, rolled down her window and greeted the officers politely, asking what the stop was for. The explanation given was vague, unclear, and to Angela seemed more like a pretense than a reason. As the situation escalated, neighbors began to gather, some pulling out their phones, capturing the unfolding scene, their curiosity mingled with concern. From the officer's perspective, Angela was reportedly uncooperative, a narrative that quickly found its way into internal reports. Yet witnesses told a very different story. They saw a calm, respectful woman following instructions, confused by the intensity of the confrontation, yet entirely non-threatening. The tension grew palpably, voices raised, and the first attempt to handcuff her resulted in a struggle that seemed more chaotic than deliberate. A momentary flurry that left onlookers gasping and officers flustered. Angela's children were unaware at home that their mother's ordinary morning had spiraled into a situation they would later see replayed on news outlets, each frame raising more questions than answers. As the handcuffs clicked into place and Angela's protests were ignored, the crowd murmured in disbelief, debating what they were witnessing. The officers maintained their stance, insisting she had resisted, while bystanders argued passionately that she had done nothing wrong. The situation was caught entirely on body cam, every second immortalized, yet it only told part of the story, leaving room for speculation and judgment. And then, the cameras captured something no one expected, a moment so revealing it would change the narrative entirely, forcing everyone involved, and the city at large, to reconsider what they thought they knew about what had happened that morning. After the incident, Angela Thompson's life seemed to shift overnight from ordinary to extraordinary, in the sense that she suddenly became the center of a story that would captivate the city. News outlets immediately picked up the body cam footage, looping it endlessly on television screens and across social media platforms. Public outrage was swift and vocal, with hashtags calling for accountability trending within hours, neighbors debating heatedly about what they had seen, and even strangers expressing their shock and disbelief. The city became a powder keg of conflicting opinions, each fueled by snippets of video, incomplete statements, and hearsay. Meanwhile, the police department launched an internal investigation, promising transparency while carefully crafting statements that offered no clear answers, leaving room for speculation about whether this was simply a procedural error, a miscommunication, or something more intentional. Friends and family of Angela Thompson were interviewed, their voices trembling with frustration, disbelief, and worry. Her mother described Angela as a woman who had never been in trouble, who had raised her children with care and guided them with patience, insisting that nothing in her life suggested she would ever find herself in such a situation. Colleagues echoed the sentiment, portraying a professional, meticulous, and responsible woman suddenly thrust into chaos. Experts consulted on the story offered conflicting interpretations, some suggesting that minor infractions could escalate when officers misread the situation, others hinting at broader systemic tensions between law enforcement and local communities. Maps of the neighborhood, documents of prior police interactions, and CCTV footage were pieced together by investigators and journalists alike, each frame offering tantalizing clues but failing to provide definitive answers. Red herrings surfaced at every turn, a complaint lodged days before, a miscommunication about a license plate, speculation about Angela's behavior that morning. The narrative was fractured, opinions diverged, and the city waited, restless and impatient for clarity. And yet, even amid the growing media storm and the endless debate online, one question lingered, gnawing at everyone following the story. Was justice being delayed, or was there something else at play, hidden beneath layers of misunderstanding, assumption, and human error? The tension built relentlessly, each revelation and contradiction pushing Angela's story further into the public consciousness, until the moment came when the first hints of a truth far more astonishing than anyone had expected began to emerge. As the investigation deepened, fragments of the truth began to emerge, pieces of a puzzle that until now had been obscured by assumptions and conflicting accounts. It became clear that Angela Thompson had been mistakenly identified as someone involved in a minor but unrelated incident just blocks away, an error that had escalated in ways no one could have predicted. Documents surfaced, emails exchanged between officers and dispatch revealing confusion over vehicle descriptions and license plates, all pointing to an internal miscommunication that had catastrophic consequences. Yet even as the investigation suggested an innocent mistake, other elements hinted at something more troubling. Questions arose about why backup had arrived so quickly, why officers had handled the encounter with such intensity, and whether personal bias or systemic pressure had influenced decisions in those critical moments. When the first formal statements were released, Angela sat quietly, absorbing the reality that her name and reputation had been publicly questioned for actions she had never committed. Family members described their relief mingled with anger and disbelief, recounting the days spent wondering if they would ever see justice done. In court, the tension reached its peak. Evidence was laid out meticulously, with body cam footage replayed and expert testimony clarifying how the error had occurred, yet still leaving room for doubt in the minds of observers. As revelations came forward, the community wrestled with mixed emotions: relief that Angela was innocent, outrage that such a misidentification could happen, and unease about what it said regarding accountability and oversight. And then came the moment that stunned everyone: a confession, not of guilt, but of procedural negligence, of officers admitting that the escalation could have been avoided at multiple points. The courtroom was silent as Angela processed the confirmation of her innocence. The weight of the ordeal etched across her face, while her family and friends exhaled with the release of long-held tension. What started as a routine day ended with a truth nobody saw coming, a revelation that would not only vindicate Angela Thompson, but also force an entire city to reconsider how it viewed authority, justice, and the fragile line that separates safety from violation. In the weeks that followed, Angela Thompson's story continued to unfold in ways few could have anticipated. Beyond the initial exoneration, a deeper review of the police department's protocols revealed failures that extended beyond a single misunderstanding. Internal audits prompted by public outcry and the glaring footage of Angela's arrest uncovered patterns of miscommunication and rushed decision-making, prompting administrative action and the suspension of officers involved in the case. For Angela, the exoneration was both a relief and a burden. The relief of her innocence being acknowledged, and the burden of carrying the memory of being publicly accused and physically restrained for an incident she had no part in. Her family, while grateful, spoke openly about the lingering emotional scars, the trust in systems that had once felt protective now being fractured. The community, meanwhile, engaged in ongoing debates about policing, accountability, and the subtle ways assumptions can shape real-world consequences. And then came an unexpected revelation. Evidence emerged that one of the officers had previously misidentified another innocent civilian, highlighting that Angela's experience, though devastating, was part of a broader problem that demanded reflection and reform. The final twist was not just personal vindication for Angela Thompson, but a call to action for the city, a mirror reflecting issues of public trust, procedural integrity, and the human cost of errors within authority. As the city grappled with the implications, observers were forced to ask themselves difficult questions. Could this happen to you? Could it happen to someone you love? Could an ordinary day filled with routine and familiarity turn into a moment that challenges your sense of safety and fairness? Angela's ordeal, though resolved in her favor, left an indelible mark, a reminder that even in cities we think we know, the unexpected can arrive with startling force, and that vigilance, accountability, and empathy remain essential in holding systems accountable for the lives they touch. After witnessing everything Angela Thompson went through, one question lingers. Could you have stayed calm and handled the situation the way she did? Or would fear and confusion have taken over? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe to stay updated for more stories that reveal the hidden truths behind events that shock, challenge, and inspire us all.